Okay, and welcome to today's podcast, the Basic to Bold podcast. I am Jen Bjornson, your host, and I am really had a week. I mean, it was just, it was the whole thing, and that's okay. That's okay. It turned out fine, and this isn't a complaint. But why I mention that is because everybody has those times. Everybody does. Everybody has the days. Some people have weeks. Some people have months. Sometimes it's full-blown years. Sometimes, I mean, really, let's just face it. Like, it's been a year for some of us. And that brings me to what I want to talk about today. And that is understanding that it's great to have a mentor. It's great to have a coach. It's amazing. Like, you need people to follow. You need to know what direction we're heading into. And that's amazing. And that's great. And I do it. I have a coach. I have a mentor. I have a ton of people who I follow. A good majority of them don't even know I exist. However, I watch what they're doing. I follow whatever processes they're doing. With that being said, nobody has it all together. And I mean, nobody has it all together. So before we dive into that, one of the things I wanted to talk about, and that is that I love doing this podcast. And the only thing I ask from you guys is that if you hear something that helped you, that you share it, that you get the message out, that I can talk to more people, help more people, and because that's ultimately the goal. So, all right. So this concept of having mentors, having people that we listen to, it's such a huge part of the growth process, because really there's only a few ways to learn things, and that is either learn by mistakes, which we can learn what not to do, and that's okay. You know, some people work best that way. Some ways I've had to learn that way, but the reality is the other way that's a little bit easier is watching what other people did and what they didn't do, or what they learned not to do, and you learn by that. And that's where mentors, that's where coaches, that's where people that are where you want to be, that's why we look to these people, because that's the ultimate goal. So the first thing is finding people that have the lifestyle that you have. Finding people that have the lifestyle that you want, right? And so this concept is that you look at somebody and let's say with business, because I think that's a really easy one. And I think that's one that a lot of people go towards, just like they see the person who's got the money and the house and the cars. And it's really easy to sit there and go, that's what I want. And that's great. And figure out what they did and duplicate it. Just repeat what they did. However, and this is more what I want to talk about, is I think a lot of times people look at the person who's got the money, who's got the house, who's got the car, and then they look at all areas of their life and they duplicate all areas. But the thing that's interesting is I have yet to meet a person who has every area of their life figured out. Like, everybody wants to get better, and some people are better in business. Some people are better at relationships. Some people are better in the health and fitness. Some people are better at mindset. But it's really rare. I'm not going to say it's impossible, but it's really, really rare to find one person who has all of the areas that you want to live up to. Does that make sense? So you may have somebody who has the riches, who has the business, who has the cars, and you may want that. And I'm not here to say that you can't have that. And I'm not here to say that that's not possible, because I do. I think it's absolutely possible. At the same time, they're giving relationship advice, marriage advice, dating advice, and that's not their strong suit. And not only is it not their strong suit, what they have in the relationship area is not what you would want to have. And so I think it's really important that we have mentors and that we have people that we're following, but that we don't follow them in areas that we wouldn't want to be like them. So one area one example that really is perfect about this. There is a social media, he's amazing. He's absolutely, I'm not going to name names, but he's absolutely amazing. He's absolutely just on it as far as marketing, and I follow him hardcore. What he says, all the advice, he has figured a bunch of stuff out with social media and content and many, many things like that. And for years, people were asking him, how do you do both? How do you balance work-life balance? How do you balance, your marriage? And the interesting thing is later on, you started to see his relationships kind of fall apart. He's very not public about, he's really not public about his relationship. So, you didn't really see anything, just kind of what he said. And he said, I'm traveling and I'm doing this. This is the life I love. And then come to find out, him and his wife divorced, and he's dating somebody else. Now, I'm not knocking divorce, and I don't know what happened with his life. I really don't. At the same time, what I find really, really interesting is so many people, if you follow his lifestyle, that's the result you're going to get. It's really hard to imagine that somebody could lead that lifestyle of being gone away from their family, that their companies and their business and their livelihood is, out of 365 days, 300 of those days on an airplane, gone somewhere else. That's really hard on a relationship. And I'm not saying you can't do it. I'm just saying it's really hard on a relationship, and this guy proved it. He proved it's really hard on a relationship. And so what I find really fascinating, though, is for myself, being married and having kids, I looked at his content as it's really great content. At the same time, if I continued in his footsteps of doing exactly what he was doing and planning all the speeches and planning all the stuff and being over here and doing the keynote over here and doing this over here, it's very likely my relationship would end up the same way as his. Of course, it's not 100%, but this is just logic. This is just logic. You can't be gone that much. You can't have this intense focus on business and money and it not affect the other areas. It's just not possible. In the same way, he talks a lot about how he was doing his business and he was going after things, and his health started affecting his health. It started affecting the way that he felt because he was eating just on the go food, and eventually he had to switch that. And that's all I'm saying. I'm not saying that these things are impossible, that, if you go after money, your relationships are going to die. No, that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, just because one person has money figured out does not mean they have relationships figured out. Just because one person has relationships figured out does not mean they have their health figured out. Just because somebody has their health figured out and looks amazing and is doing triathlons does not mean that they have a business figured out or they can do their really mindset in business. So you have to look at all these areas, and not only look at all these areas, but you have to say, it's okay to say that this person has a lifestyle in business that I want. However, it is clear to see that their business is affecting their relationship. That's an okay statement. It's not judging. It's just how it's working in their relationship. So for me, one of the things I like to do is I have multiple people. I like this person. And at that time that I'm watching somebody else, when I'm watching an individual and I'm seeing how they're doing it, if they look successful in their relationship, I'm going to follow what they have to say. I'm going to test it out in my own relationship. Now, this is not just blindly following, like, oh, they say to do this and clearly they've got it figured out. No, that's my point. Nobody has it figured out. Some people have certain things figured out. They have a skill set that they have figured out, and that's great. At the same time, not all skill sets work the same for people. Does every relationship need communication? 100%. You need to learn how to communicate. Are you all going to communicate the exact same way as another influencer on Instagram because that's the way they communicate? No, but you're going to have to try it out. And the best way to start is to start looking at the different areas of your life. Look at your health. Look at your relationships. Look at your mindset. Look at your business and money and finances. And then start looking at people of what they did. Now, if you're going to follow somebody who's been divorced 14 times and your goal is, I want to stay married to the same person for a long period of time. That's what I want to do. But I also want to have a good amount of money. Then go find somebody who has incorporated a good relationship with their finances. Or take somebody with their finances and not say, okay, I like that, but I also see how that could really affect my relationship. This person's gone like 200 days out of the year. How exactly, if I want that lifestyle, how exactly am I going to curate amazing relationships or have great relationships with my family? How are my kids going to know me if I'm gone all the time? Like, how does that even work? And these are real things you have to ask yourself. But I think the thing that's more that I wanted to talk about, because so many people so many people are following individuals because they have one area of their life figured out. And they're great. They're great at that area. And I'm not going to say they don't have it figured out, because there are so many people who have a certain area of their lives figured out. They have marketing figured out, or they have business figured out, or they have social media figured out, or they have, they know how to get a baby to sleep and for long term, and like they're sleeping through the night. Like, these skills are amazing. But just because you have one skill in one area does not mean you've got all these other areas figured out. Now, I learned this concept. I was at a business mastermind group, and there were all types of people there. There were some people uber successful, other people who, just getting started, other people who, they had been in the business for many, many years. There are other people, all types. Now, this was more on the topic of business at the same time, because relationships bleed into business, your fitness bleeds into business, mindset absolutely goes into business. So because of this, we talked about everything. And there was one guy there that when we would talk about business, which was a good majority of the time, everybody was talking to one specific guy. They were like, oh, look at this guy. He has it. He's doing this in, a quarter and this a month and all the numbers, right? And the amazing thing is so I'm looking at this guy and I'm like, oh, this guy has got it figured out. Like, he's amazing. And people would ask him questions like, what do you think I should do for this? And he just spat out, oh, you need to do this. And he was spot on. He was amazing in business. Absolutely amazing. At the same time, it kind of got to him because we were all asking questions like, what do you need? Somebody asked a question, we'd all help figure it out. What do you need? So it gets to him and he's like, what do you need? And his issue was not business because he had that figured out. His issue was relationships. And he was on the verge of a divorce. His kids barely talked to him. And I remember sitting there and we had just spent the afternoon just absolutely adoring this guy and all his accomplishments. Not adoring, but you get what I mean. Like, we were all just like in awe of this guy. Just, oh my gosh, he's killing it at life. And I sat there, and when he was describing his problem, I was absolutely just like astounded, because as he's describing his problem, I'm going, how did you make a business and not know that about relationships? And it wasn't a judgment. It wasn't like, oh my gosh, you're an idiot. It was more like, oh, everybody has something that they don't have figured out. Everybody does. Everybody has some areas that we're all idiots in. Like, I'm an idiot in some areas, and I will gladly claim that I'm an idiot. In fact, I was on a call with my coach, and he kind of was being joking, but you could tell that he was kind of getting irritated because it was not understanding this concept. And he was joking, and I took this totally as a joke. And he was like, "Are you not getting, like, are you an idiot? Or are you just pretending to be an idiot?" And I looked at him and I'm like, I'm an idiot. I'm like, this concept, I'm not getting. And you could just see it in his face. He's like, how are you not getting this? And I'm like, I get it. I get that you get it. I don't get it. And I need you to figure out a way to get me to get it. That was like the whole conversation. Now, we got there. But at the same time, we're all idiots in an area. And not idiots. I know that sounds harsh, because I'm a big person. Like, don't beat yourself up, and don't rip on yourself, and really celebrate who you are. Yes, but at the same time, you have to recognize that you've got to know what you don't know. Not in a shaming way, not in a blaming way, not in a I'm a horrible person, and if I don't know this, then I just must be the biggest idiot. No. Try so hard. And I know this is so hard with past traumas and past, like, especially if you dealt with narcissism and stuff. But if you can, with no filter of emotion, with no shaming or guilt or any kind of negativity, just look at the areas and go, I'm really good in this area. Because I know these skills. I know this. Like, for me, just recently, I homeschool. And I rarely tell people that, mainly because I don't feel like I know what I'm doing. I don't feel confident enough. I shouldn't say that now. In the past, historically, I have not felt confident enough to tell people that I homeschool, because it has been an area that I just don't feel I'm doing a good enough job. Now, whether that's right or wrong, right? But that's definitely like emotion added to it, because like, am I doing enough? I don't know. Is it going to be okay? Right? And just recently, I was able to take this concept, and somebody asked me, what are you, and not somebody specific, but we were doing an exercise. And it really was, what are you an expert in? And me being an expert in certain areas, I was kind of like, I don't know if I call myself an expert. But the reality is, I am an expert in homeschooling. Now, the emotion I put on it was, I don't know. I don't know if I'm doing a good enough job. I mean, I don't feel confident telling people that, I don't know if you'd want advice from me, right? Because that's my own insecurity. That's my own emotion that I've put into it. But logically speaking, when I could just take the emotion away of, oh, I don't know, right? The reality is I have homeschooled I'm on my 14th year. So what's the likelihood that I'm an expert? It's pretty high. The knowledge that I have compared to somebody who's starting their first year, it's really high. But if you were to ask me if I'm the expert, I'm like, oh, I don't know. But then somebody who's brand new at homeschooling, if they're asking me, hey, what should I do? What curriculum? What's unschooling? What's this? What's that? Like, oh, I don't know. I can totally tell you that. I can tell you all of it. I can tell you all your options. I can't tell you what to do because that's a personal decision. That's between you and your kids. That's between you, like what you like to do. So I can't tell you what to do, but I can tell you all the options because we have literally done all the options, all of them. So if you can take a situation and take an area and look at your life and try to remove the filter of all the emotion, like, oh, I don't know. Oh, and could I really call myself an expert? Am I really good at this? Take that all away. If you can do that, now start to say, okay, logically, what am I good at? What skills do I have? If you've played the piano for 2 years, 5 years, let's say you're not that great, right? You're comparing yourself to somebody like, oh, I mean, I'm not that great. Well, you're ahead of me. If you do gardening, I'm in the beginning stage of gardening and I'm not doing well. Now, it is possible because it's very hot and I live in the South. That's a possibility. In fact, I am blaming it on that. However, I haven't figured it out and I don't have the skill set yet. So if you can remove the filters of emotion, of I don't know, am I good enough? I'm comparing myself to somebody who's been doing it for 40 years. Like, remove that and just start looking at things, the skills that you have gained. Now it's going to tell you the skills that you need. Maybe you want to better your relationship and you genuinely don't know how. But the fact that you haven't given up means you're doing, like, not that you're doing good, but you haven't given up. That's a strength. That's a skill. You haven't given up. And you keep pushing forward in it. Now, maybe you're lacking some serious communication skills and you just haven't learned those yet. And if you could remove the shame, remove the emotion, remove all the other stuff, that's what you start working on. And then go and find somebody who has been married for 20 years to the same person, right? Somebody who's been married for a long period of time. Maybe you're learning how to co-parent. Maybe you're not trying to work on that relationship. You're trying to figure out, okay, I don't want to be married to this person anymore, but we're going to co-parent and I want to be an amazing co-parent. And I want this to all be civil and I want it to be healthy and I want it to be good. Then find somebody who has done it and has taken a relationship from just divorce and maybe not good, not healthy, and they figured out the skills, the communication, the skills, everything to make that co-parenting work. But you have to remove the emotion. And I know that's sometimes so hard, so hard to figure out. I totally understand. I'm right there with you. It is. But that's what we have to do. Try to remove the emotion, but also just because somebody's great in one area doesn't make them great in all areas. And that's okay. That's okay because we all have a thing. We all have what we're good at. We all have what we're not good at. And that's fine. It's fine. It's not that big of a deal. Because can you imagine if we all had all the skills? Like this life would kind of be boring if you really think about it. Like, I don't even know how that would work. I don't even know that I can wrap my head around it. Because the reality is I'm not that interested in parasailing. But there are people out there who are really amazing at parasailing and they love it and it's their whole life. Am I sad that I don't know how to parasail? No. Nope. Go live your best life. That's amazing for you. I love that for you. So the idea of like shaming of, oh, I don't have that skill. Oh, and I hope you're following me on this concept, because I find that we shame ourselves for the weirdest stuff, like the weirdest stuff, right? Stuff we don't even care about. I'll give you an example. Going back to like this gardening concept. So I had not recently now, but at the time of the story, I'd recently moved into the South. I know how to garden. At the same time, I know how to garden in the North. I know how to garden when there's clearly a spring, clearly a summer, and clearly a winter, right? Or clearly a fall and clearly a winter. Like I know I know when to start. I know that you got to get stuff in before the frost. Like I know you got to get stuff out, but what you can leave in for the wind or like the snow. Like I get that. Moved down south, I don't get any of it. Like nothing makes sense. We're planting in the middle of winter. Here's the thing. And this is the kind of point I was making. There came a time where I was just berating myself. I was looking at other people on YouTube. I was looking at other people on Instagram, and they had these beautiful gardens. And I was like, oh, I suck as a gardener. Like, oh my gosh. And I was just looking at these people like, they're so amazing. They're so awesome. Oh my gosh, I just suck at this. But here's the reality. I wasn't actually trying to learn how to do it. I was like halfway doing it because I was working on other stuff. I was working on hypnotherapy. I was working on energy healing. I was working on healing myself. So I really wasn't trying to learn it. I really wasn't focusing on it. I would go buy plants, stick them in the ground, and the majority of them would die. Some of them would miraculously work. I don't know how they work because some of them I was like, maybe it's the sun, maybe it's the soil. I don't know. I never figured it out. That's kind of the point. I never figured it out. At the same time, I wasn't putting any energy to learn the skill, but I was putting a ton of energy in ripping on myself for not learning that. Not for not learning the skill, but for automatically not knowing or not having the skill. Is this making sense? Get it? I was putting energy and time in ripping on myself because I was a crap gardener. But I wasn't trying to learn how to be a good gardener. I didn't really want to spend the time to learn how to be a good gardener because there was other things more important at the time. But yet I was spending a good majority of time telling people what a crap gardener I was. And I had this epiphany one time. And it's kind of when I heard the saying that comparing yourself kills joy. And I did have a friend, and she was an insane gardener. Like, not only insane gardener, she had turned her whole house into like this fairy garden. And I mean a real life fairy garden. Like, she had the archways, and then you'd walk through the little path, like you'd walk through and the pumpkins were growing over the patch or like over the vine. And then you'd walk into the duck area. Like, it was a fairy tale. Okay. Like, this woman had it figured out. And every time I go to her house, I just go, oh, I love your house. Like, this is a fairyland. Like, this is amazing. But I would never figure out how to do it. I never asked her. I never looked on Instagram. I never looked on Pinterest. I never did anything to learn how to do it. But I sit there and I go, oh, I could never do this. And she's like, yes, you can. It's super easy. You just need the right fertilizer. You need the right this. And I was like, no, I suck at gardening. And that's just it. And finally, I had this realization, right? That I was ripping on myself without actually trying to learn the skill. And so this is what I came up with. I turned to myself and I was like, self, either learn how to do the skill or stop whining about the fact that you don't know how to do the skill. It's not that hard. Either it's that interesting enough to learn it, then go learn it. Go put the money, go put the time, go put the effort into learning the skill. Or it's not that interesting to you at this time. Maybe it will be in a later date, but right now, at this time, it's not that interesting. Then stop whining about the fact that you can't garden. And that's what I did. I went through my life and I looked at all the things I was complaining about and all the things I was whining about and all the things I was berating myself about that I wasn't good at, that I'm not, I don't know how to do this and I don't know how to do that and I don't speak these languages that I want to speak. Yeah, because I wasn't trying to do it. I didn't have the time. And reality, I get it. We all have the same time, and if it's important, you'll make time. That's my point. It wasn't that important. But it was very important to just sit there and rip on myself. And I just stopped. I just stopped. I stopped ripping on myself. And the reality is, sometimes I find myself doing it, but I really try hard now. If I'm like, I'm not very good at that, then I stop and I think, yeah, but do I want to do that? I don't really want to do that. So instead of now saying, I'm not good at that, I'll say, you know what? I just haven't made time to do it. Because that's the truth. The fact of whether I'm good at it or not, that's actually not even true. Because I don't even know if I'm good at it or not. I haven't put any time and effort into actually seeing if I'm good at anything or good at the thing that I'm ripping myself about. So I say the truth. You know what? I haven't learned that skill and I haven't really put any time and effort to learn that skill yet. Or there are some things that I can't even think of one right now, but there are some things that people have told me. Parasailing, right? Parasailing. Somebody's been like, I want to do that. Absolutely no interest, but I am so excited for you. So excited for you to do it. That sounds amazing. Hey, will you come do it with me? Absolutely not. Nope. Not interested whatsoever. But I am so stoked for you. Because that is exciting. It's exciting to find something that you're interested in. It's amazing. But just because it's amazing for you does not mean I am excited about it to do it for myself. And I think we should do that. Everybody should do that. We should learn what our skill sets are, what we're actually interested in. And then whatever you're not interested in, let it go. Let it go. Let go of what you're not interested in. It's fine. It's not that big of a deal. It's not that big of a deal if you don't ever want to go parasailing. It's not that big of a deal if you don't ever want to learn how to garden. If you don't care about the way that you dress and you're super happy in t-shirt and jeans and some boots and you don't care, then who cares? It doesn't matter. If you want to get so dressed up and a full set of makeup and putting all the colors and all the stuff on your face, do it. And that's your skill, do it. That's amazing. Because that's what makes this life actually interesting. I have no desire to put an insane amount of makeup on my face and do the different colors and to do all this stuff. But I watch it. I watch it all the time. I watch it on TikTok. I watch it on Instagram. I find it so fascinating. People who can do that. That's amazing. Other people who have skills, it's amazing. And I'll watch it all the time. I just finished a documentary about two guys. One happens to be Ewan McGregor. It was such a good, I love documentaries. Little side note, love them. So it was Ewan McGregor, right? And his friend Charlie. And they went all around the world on motorbikes. Literally. They went from London to all the way to Russia. I think they hit 18 countries or something like that. And they did almost 20,000 miles, right? Literally all the way around the world on motorcycles. And I binge watched it. Do I have a desire to do that? Nope. Hard pass. But it was so cool to watch. The thing, I get that we all do it, but I don't get why we do it. And once I had this realization, I get that we do it. I get that we sit there and we rip on ourselves because we can't do something. I do. I get that. I get that we do it. I don't get why we do it. I don't get why I would rip on myself that I don't want to go all the way around the world on a motorcycle. But we do. We do that on the weirdest stuff. Right? Like we do it on the weirdest stuff that doesn't make us happy. We're not really interested in it at all, but yet we feel like we should minimize ourselves. And we can go down the rabbit hole as to why we do it and where it comes from. And I get it, trauma and narcissism and like all this stuff. I get it. Comparison and expectations, right? I get it. But can we just agree today? Like, let's just stop. Can we just not? Can we just let it go? Can we just, all of us, men, women, everybody, like, can we just let it go? And if you're not interested in it, great. And if you are, learn the skill. And if you're not ready to learn the skill, say that. Because it's okay. And to recognize, to find somebody that they're amazing in the one skill that you want to learn, but maybe they don't have another area figured out, and that's okay. It's not ripping on them like they have this expectation or we have this expectation of them of you better have your life together. No. That's amazing that you are great in makeup. I'm not going to follow you on raising children. And that's okay because your skill is makeup, and that's all right. Now, if you come out to be a child rearing magician, I love that. And we're a little past babies and stuff, but you get what I'm saying. I would follow you. If you've figured out some stuff that I haven't figured out, awesome. But can we just celebrate who we are rather than getting upset or shaming ourselves or guilting ourselves because we haven't figured out being this other fake random person that we think we're supposed to be, but we're actually not really that interested in being. All right. I love you guys. I love doing this podcast. Please share it if you found anything that helped you or might help a friend or somebody you know. All right. Love you guys.